So here is my pretty kitty card. Isn't that little kitty cat so cute? And if you are not a cat person, it's okay. We actually have a stamp set called Bella and Friends, and it's got little puppies. But when I looked at this stamp set, I just could not resist getting this little fur baby kitty cat. I think it's so cute. Love all their little expressions. Let me just show you the stamp set in case you haven't seen it. Is that not adorable? I love all the sayings on there. This one, because I knit. This one's wrapped up in a ball of yarn. That was partly what drew me to this stamp set. So it's really a cute one. Lots of different sentiments that are perfect to be used for any time of the year. So as you can see, this card has a black matting around the background. And then I've cut several circles out with my layering circles framelits dies, and then put a different color cardstock in behind each of those. I've heat embossed in white my sentiment, created another frame just like I did with the other card, and watercolored my background and my kitty cat, put that all together, and my card is done. And of course, with all of these instruction sheets, I have your list of supplies and all of the measurements in that instruction sheet. But I am going to go over it with you so that you can get the visualization. I have a card base. This is my thick whisper white. This is cut to 8.5 by 5.5, and then I've just scored it and folded it at 4 1/4. I've got an additional piece of whisper white that is cut to 4 by 5 1/4, and this is going to end up being my very front panel. But underneath that, I want to have a piece of basic black, and the way that I've cut this out is so that there's going to be just a small frame of the basic black showing, and then a small amount of the card base showing around it. So the basic black is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and then everything else is scraps. I literally went to my scrap drawer and just drug out everything. So the colors that I'm going to be using for my card is Melon Mambo, Pool Party, Daffodil Delight, Wisteria Wonder, and Basic Black. Now this piece of basic black is way bigger than what I need. There's a dimensional. I'm just going to be cutting this out right here, but I just grabbed this piece out, and yes, it is too big. It's okay. I'm going to cut it down and stick the remainder back into my scrap drawer. So I'm going to go ahead and get my watercoloring done. I'm using the 5th from the largest plain circle, and I'm just going to take my watercolor paper and draw a pencil line around the outside of this framelit. Okay, then I'm going to be using my watercoloring pencils to do this with. I'm going to be using my Old Olive, Melon Mambo, Rich Razzleberry, and my gray. Oh, I've already got it out. So very simple, very easy. We're going to start out with the Old Olive. I know that I want my grass to stop just about in the middle, so I'm going to start there and start coloring down with my pencil. And if you draw outside the lines, it really doesn't matter. We're going to be cutting this out anyway, so it is all right. Then for my flowers, very simple. Just drawing some lines up like this. Maybe have some with little stems branching off of them. This can represent leaves, it can be extra little flowers, whatever you want it to be. Then I'm going to take my Melon Mambo, super simple flowers. I'm just scrubbing some color in there, just zigzagging it back and forth, because I want this to have a very loose, abstract kind of appearance to it. So I am not making perfect shaped little flowers. Take my Rich Razzleberry, do the same thing, just throw some little scribbles of color in there. All right, now comes the coloring. I'm going to be using my aqua painter. Now when I do this, I am going to be erasing some of those lines that I drew for my flowers. It's all right. If I want to, I can come back in and add them right back in, just like that. But my kitty cat's going to be covering up a good portion of it, so I'm not really going to be too worried about it. Clean my brush off. Now I'm going to come in on all of those Melon Mambo and just squiggle back and forth with my aqua painter just like I put the color on. Clean my brush, come in here on all of these rich razzleberry, scribble back and forth, and my background is complete. Now, can you get any simpler than that? Oh, I almost forgot though. Almost complete. The little kitty cat's going to be standing right down here. I'm just going to take my aqua painter and my basic gray, get a little bit of that color off of the pencil just like that, determine where my little kitty cat's going to stand, and then put a little bit of gray in here because he's standing outside in the sun and he's going to be casting a shadow. So that was pretty easy, right? I don't think that you can get any easier watercoloring than that unless you're just standing back and throwing it at your paper. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead now and get my kitty cat stamped. So I'm going to be using this one right here. Have my basic black archival ink. Now I'm not going to stamp him onto the circle there. I'm actually going to stamp him down here. And then I will be coloring him, and I'm going to hand cut it out. So I should have just kept my gray pencil out, and I'm going to be using my Daffodil Delight, and I'm going to use my Melon Mambo again. So what I'm going to do with this kitty, I'm just going to leave him white except for a few areas that I feel there might be some shadow. So if you don't want to do this part by coloring him in and trying to figure out where shadowing is going to be, then by all means just leave him solid white. It is really okay. But I'm just putting a little bit of this gray here and there in places where I feel that there would automatically and naturally occur shadows with him standing out in the sun. Then I'm going to take my Daffodil Delight and color in that bow. Then take my Melon Mambo, do the inside of his little ears and the cute little tongue. Take my aqua painter, make sure it's clean. Just drag a little bit of that gray color around. This does not have to be perfect by any means. It's just some shadowing. Color in that little tongue, those little ears. See if I need to smooth anything out anywhere. That looks fine. Now I'm going to sit this over to the side to get dry while we're doing the rest of the card. What I'm going to do now is determine where I want all of my circles to be cut out on my paper. I like using some washi tape, it's in here somewhere, and taping these circles down so that I know that they're going to be where I want them. And there's no definite place to put them. As you can see how I've done mine, a couple of them I've just let hang off the edge, and then the rest of them I've put within the card. So you can just eyeball this, set it up however you want to. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure that you don't have any of them too close together when you're doing this, so that you have room behind this panel to put all of your different colors and nothing overlap or stick out and show from the color beside it. So I'm just going to stick these on here, and I'm going to allow a couple of those to run off and get this run through the Big Shot. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video, show you how I'm placing everything and cutting it out, and then when I'm done we'll come back and move on. Alrighty, so now I'm going to be cutting out all of the circles that I'm going to be using. And what I have found the easiest thing to do is to trade out the smallest circle that I used and bump up one size larger than the largest one I've used. And I just go through and cut out, and then I arrange them in behind my card, take a look at it, and decide what I like and what I don't like, and that's how I put it together. So let me go ahead and get all of these cut out, and then we'll come back and I will show you in detail how I decide my arrangement. Okay, now I've got my circles. A couple of the pieces I only cut out 2, and I knew that I only wanted one of the Wisteria Wonder, so I just cut out 1. Alright, so I'm going to look at my original card and kind of play off of that. Since I know that I'm going to have my frame with the Melon Mambo, I tied a little more Melon Mambo into this, but I don't want anything right up here next to the frame. So I know that I want any of my Melon Mambo colors to stay out here away from the frame. And see, I almost got these too close together. See that? So I'm basically going to go pretty similar to what I used before. That circle's not big enough, so I'm going to slide my pool party right there. And what you're doing is you're using a size larger circle than the one you cut out of the paper originally. I think I'll use another Daffodil Delight here. Oops. And then maybe a pool party here. So I like that fine. Now what I'm going to do is just start putting my circles on one at a time. You can use whatever adhesive you like. I'm just going to go ahead and use my multi-purpose liquid glue and get these put into place. The reason I'm using liquid glue is because it gives me a second to move my paper around to get it put right in the place I want it to be. So I'm going to start out with this little yellow circle, and I'm just going to run a little bit of glue right around the back there. Going to lay that down, place that circle right on top. Then we'll move on and I'll do this Melon Mambo here. What I'm going to do next is just trim off these extra pieces here. And it probably would be smart to go this way. Alright, so now I have this part of my card put together. It looks great. Going to take the black matting and I'm going to end up putting this on top of that. Just going to continue using my liquid glue. It's right here, it's handy. Alright, now we can go ahead and get our heat embossed sentiment ready to go. So I'm just going to prep my basic black with my embossing buddy because I don't want my embossing powder sticking anywhere that I don't want it to. Have my Versamark ink. Get my sentiment stamped or inked up really well. And I'm just going to stamp this pretty much down in the bottom center of this piece. Sprinkle my embossing powder over that. Tap off the excess. Perfect. I've got that heat set now. I'm just going to use my trimmer. Going to place this in here, and I know that I want to trim relatively close to the bottom of the Y in that word. So what I try to do, and I don't know how well you can see it, but I can see my lettering through my ruler, and I can see the bottom of the Y right there, which I know that my cutting track is going to run right down through the center. So I'm going to go ahead and slice that there because that looks about like where I want it to be. And boy, I need to put some new blades on my trimmer. These have had it. Alright, then I'm going to line that up on top, and just like I did on the bottom, I'm going to measure it according to my tallest letters. So I can see the top of the J right there and the K right there. I've got it spaced out about the same that I did below the Y. So cut that out. Awesome. Now, I know that I want to have it right up here next to the edge of my card. Just going to grab my scissors and just trim straight up, probably about a 1/2 of an inch from the end of my sentiment right there. Then I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to trim more like an inch away on this side. Snip up about 1/4 of an inch or so in the center. Then from this corner out to where I made that center cut, I'm going to cut at an angle. Turn it this way and do that again, and it gives me this little bannered edge. So I've got that ready. All right, the next thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to use some more of my melon mambo, and I need to grab an extra piece. And just like we did or are going to do on the next card, so what I have here are 3 of my layering circles. I have my 4th from the largest plain circle and my 3rd from the largest plain circle. Now the 4th one was the one that I used to draw the circle around the outside so I'd know where I needed to color. Remember that? So I'm going to use my 3rd from the largest circle to cut this out. Then I'm going to use my 4th from the largest circle and my 2nd from the largest scallop circle. I'm going to place these 2 together. I'm going to place them evenly. I can use my graph paper to help me measure this out and make sure that I have it centered. Then I'll just use some washi tape and tape these 2 together, and this is what I'm going to use to cut out my melon mambo. I'm gonna cut a couple of these out. So these should be spaced out evenly all the way around, and pick it up and take a look at it. If it looks to you like one side has shifted and it's a little bit closer to your cut edge than the other side, put it back down and make sure that you do have that lined up straight, which it looked like maybe I shifted mine when I was taping them together. So I'm going to get this taped together properly. I'm going to run this through my Big Shot twice, cutting out my 2 melon mambo frames, and then I'll be right back. I'm going to run a little bit of liquid glue around one of my frames, and then I'm just going to place the other one right on top, making sure that I'm lining up all of those little ridges from the scalloped edge and get it lined up in the center cut as well. Put a little more glue just right around the inside edge here. And I'm going to attach my watercolor piece. Flip that over, make sure it looks like I want it to look. Here's my little kitty cat. I'm just going to hand cut him out. Now to adhere him into place, again, just using my liquid glue. That way I can get it all over the places I need to get it and make sure that his little tail is going to stay stuck down. Then I'm going to adhere him right here on top of where I painted that little shadow so that it'll look like he's standing there and there's an awesome little shadow below him. So let's go ahead and get our card built. I am getting low on dimensionals, aren't I? I have some more over in my drawer. I'm going to pop 4 of these on the back, and that's the last of my whole pieces. So I'm just going to snip, snip, and use one of these little edge pieces. Got all the backing off of there. Then I want him to live right up here toward the top of my card. So place that down. Take my sentiment. And if you didn't realize that you could do this with your dimensionals, I hope that this is like one of those light bulb moments. I didn't think of doing that before. That's an awesome idea. But I am a frugal person, and I am going to use these things down to the very last bite, so to speak. So then this is going to go right here, about 1/2 of an inch, 5/8 of an inch up from the bottom. Just like the bird card, this can be an all occasion card. It's fun. It's really kind of nondescript as far as being specific to a holiday. But think about this. What if you wanted to make a card for Thanksgiving or Christmas and you changed out the colors accordingly?